And we did it, baby. UFC Freedom 250 is completed. It really happened. It finally got here, and it really happened. It was a very, very memorable event, in my opinion. We have a lot of things to talk about in today's car episode. Man, we got some big fallout from some huge people that lost. We have, the Topps Freedom 250 product that potentially gets some steam from this. We're going to talk about all the matchups that happened. We're going to talk about the Topps Now cards that happened, if I can remember all of this. So let's get into, first off, the broadcast from this event. I was actually really happy with the broadcast. The beginning promo that they had with all of the monuments in DC overlaid with fighter, images and action over the monuments with the narration, I thought was absolutely sick and epic. Very fun start to the event. Then we had Trump and Dana White walking out together through the White House. Very surreal moment, very bizarre and odd. But like that's what this whole event was, right? Anytime they would pan out from the ring and you saw the aerial shot of the structures of, the massive claw thing literally right next to the White House. And then they showed the huge field, you have like a festival going on, 100 yards, 200 yards away from our nation's capital. Was absolutely insane, man. We had actually a back crew member, shout out to Chris, was there. He's a serviceman, was there inside, right next to the octagon. He sent me some pictures and told me some stuff about the event. We had another back crew member, out of 99, was in the field, watching with the people, having a good time. He said it was the greatest event, live sports event he's ever been to. It looked absolutely crazy, man. I know there were some other people. Huck over at DGen Rips was in the field as well. Anytime they showed the structures, I was like, wow, this is really happening. Probably the most memorable event that's ever happened in UFC history, man. And the fights were incredible, dude. The fights were absolutely incredible. Also, live band, can we not have that more often? That really added a little bit to the event. Me and Josh were talking about that. Pretty sick to have, little bit like songs playing live in between fights. I thought that was actually a really good idea. And can they do that in the future? It would, kind of adds a concert element to the event. And in my opinion, if I was there, I would have really appreciated, being able to watch a band in between fights. Okay, let's talk about probably what I'm going to use as a thumbnail and a title for this video. We have the two biggest drivers in the UFC card market right now. The two hottest guys that are surging. Two guys that before this event were also on the cusp of potentially being, we're talking GOAT candidates. I am talking about Alex Pereira and Ilia Topuria, who now we know both lost in this event. Let's talk about Poatan first. And I want to talk about these two individually, and then we will talk about the effects that this could have on the UFC card market. And this is all speculation, but I think this is a good topic to go into because we'll kind of pinpoint some differences between these two guys. First off, we have Poatan. Let's talk about him. He goes in, and the storyline before this, right, was a guy that could potentially reach greatness and do something that people have nobody's ever even been close to doing before, which is becoming a champion in 3 different weight classes, a 3-division champion. He loses. Should this affect, or I shouldn't say should this, it's definitely going to affect his market negatively. I guess the question is, how much should this affect his market negatively? We know the trends within UFC card collecting. If you lose, your prices are going to go down. And this happens whether it's somebody going up, trying to get double champ status, whether it's, somebody historic doing something historic like this. I would still assume that Poatan is going to get a negative dip from this loss. So my question is, when a fighter is trying to do something historic that we have never seen done, that we've never been seen done, like go up to be a triple champ status, should we not take that into account and not penalize him as much for trying to do something that's never been done? In my opinion, the answer is obviously yes. You have a guy that already has an extremely cemented legacy with, checks notes, 6 title wins, one weight class champ at 185. He then loses, so he has no defenses at 185, but he then goes on and racks up multiple defenses at 205. You have a guy that has beaten a lot of big names and a lot of former champions. Very exciting. A lot of highlights, memorable moments, right? It's got a lot of fan favor as well. In my opinion, his market should be relatively stable for a loss like this. We're seeing somebody try and do something that's never been done. We have the accolades, the legacy already intact, in my opinion, very securely. He could be, arguably, top 10 guy. I think that's an easy case to make, that he's a top 10 guy based upon what he's done, how he's done it, right? So in my opinion, we should see, obviously he lost. Not going to be as hyped. You have people speculating before the fight as well. Oh, he's going to be 3 weight class champ. That's getting baked into some of the comps and some of the overall sales, right? He loses. Maybe that comes down a little bit, but you still have that base layer. You still have that foundation to build upon, which I think is so important, and is why the mantra, sell the hype, buy the goats, is such a solid mantra, in my opinion, when it comes to trying to amass a great collection. Because whenever you have somebody that is already in this category, is already in this upper echelon tier, a loss like this, and again, this is just my opinion, should bring them down to kind of a safe baseline of where they were before. So that is the Poatan argument. And again, he's 38 years old, right? What do we do now with Alex Pereira, one of the hottest guys in UFC card collecting and one of the hottest guys in UFC cards in general? Where do we go from here? What do we do now? We know that he signed an insane deal with the UFC for future fights and future performances. He's 38 years old. What is left for him? Is he going to stay at heavyweight? Anytime people pack on a lot of muscle, right? Like, trying to lose muscle once you've gained it is kind of hard, contrary to probably what people think. These guys are elite athletes. They're not just people off the couch, right? Like, muscle tissue it can be difficult for the body to shed that sometimes. I don't know if we're going to see him back at 205. I think it's definitely possible for him to cut back down to 205, but I don't know what we see. Maybe he doesn't want to cut weight anymore and he wants to just stay at heavyweight. I still do think there's a lot of good matchups for him at heavyweight. Do we see the Josh Hokit versus Poatan? From a hype perspective, from a storyline perspective, that is the obvious choice, in my opinion. You have a guy that we're going to talk about soon, Josh Hokit, go out and beat Derek Lewis. There's some bad blood there. Probably would be a fun fight. Now, we did see Hokit have some good success in the takedown department with ground and pound. Does he do that to Poatan? That's obviously, a stylistic thing that a lot of people are going to be talking about when that happens. But what do we do with Poatan and his card prices? You kind of heard my thoughts here. I'm curious to hear what other people think about Poatan and Ilia Topuria, who we are now going to talk about. We got a guy that just set the record, or actually not the record. The record was set last night, which will be a future video. But guy that held the record for highest UFC card sale of all time at $101,000. Now, a little bit different situation, in my opinion, and which is why I wanted to highlight this as one of the focal points of this video. When we look at Ilia Topuria, in my opinion, the situation is slightly different than with Poatan. You have a guy that has not really stacked up the accolades that Alex Pereira has up to this point. And I said up to this point because Ilia was very close to finishing that fight against Gaethje, contrary to what it looks like, with him getting battered and bruised and really beat up bad at the end of the fight. I actually watched that fight again, and Topuria was very close to finishing Gaethje, right? So we can't necessarily act like this was a steamroll. Topuria could have won that fight in that second round. I want to make that be very apparent when I talk about this, because this is going to be kind of slightly a negative light that I'm painting Ilia in. And the reason I'm saying that is because he has 3 title wins. He has, very little defenses. He has 1 defense. He didn't defend at 145. He, had a defense against Charles and then loses this one to Gaethje. Obviously, he's 17-1, incredibly talented, incredibly popular. But how does this affect his legacy? And with the Poatan, we were making the argument, if he goes on a skid and never does anything again, I think he still has a very, very firm footing and very, very cemented legacy to build off of and to still be popular and collect. If Topuria never wins again, which again, I'm not saying that, right? We're posing the scenario and thinking as negatively as possible to try and speculate on future pricing. If he never wins again, this is not an all-time resume. This is not an all-time resume. Now, he's still an incredible fighter, and you could probably get him into, he's 2-weight class champ, 3 title wins. If he never wins again, a lot of really popular. We're kind of looking at maybe Conor McGregor status. Somewhere in that vein, where somebody that reached all-time highs and the candle burned super bright, he flew too close to the sun and then never came back. So there's still a scenario and a use case out there where Ilia Topuria is extremely collectible and where, there is something to be said about his longevity. But I don't think if we're being really risk averse, I do not think it's as safe of a guy at this point with this loss. Could definitely come back. You got a lot of strikers at 155. I mean, if they run that back, I do see a scenario where Topuria bests Gaethje and reclaims the title. You know, how does he fare against Arman? That's a really tough matchup for him. You got really good strikers like Ruffy in the mix. You know, it's kind of a sketchy, murky waters in my opinion. But he still does have the 3 title win, the 2-weight class champion. He has a 2-year title reign, which is, you know, somewhat decent, but Poatan I didn't mention as a 4-year title reign, which is very secure and is a really long time for a guy to be up at the top winning and then losing and then winning the titles again. So I think we could potentially see a decent drop on Ilia short term. Now long term, again, I don't think it should drop that crazy, because I think that we should still, you know, have in the back of our minds that this guy could definitely come back. But again, he took massive amounts of damage in that fight. Will he ever be the same again? That's another serious conversation to have. It was a no mas, right? Like, he quit on the stool, and no shade on saying that. Like, he took a beat down, man. The doctor wanted to stop it. Weird stuff going on. They let it continue. They only let that continue at this White House card. They would have stopped that anywhere else. He was beat to hell, couldn't see. Really tough guy to hang in there and continue. And he honestly had moments even with that much damage. But yeah, man, very, very tough fight for Ilia Topuria. Can he come back from this? The psyche of a guy that kind of has that unbeatable, invincible attitude. How is he going to rebound? That's always an interesting thing for me mentally, to see how these fighters rebound. He is only 29, but again, we've had talks of him saying himself, Ilia Topuria saying himself, that he doesn't want to be around long. How long is he going to be here? Another year or two? What does that mean? Maybe max 4 fights. That's 2 every 6 months. Maybe max 4 fights. So, oof. Interesting times right now with the UFC card market. How does this change the UFC card market overall? We have the 2 biggest stars going down. The 2 biggest guys in modern collecting. I think it hurts modern collecting quite a bit, in that anytime you have these dynasty type guys, their cards really surge and push. You have the guys that are entering into, you know, if Topuria won this, we were going to definitely see Islam versus Topuria, which I was hyped to see. We're not going to see that anymore. We are not going to see that at this point. Islam, there's no way he's going to let a guy from 155 try and come up and fight for the belt unless they have multiple defenses at this point in time, unless he racks up a couple more wins at 170. But I do think that we had I mentioned it earlier, some incredible vintage sales. So the UFC card market, while for modern collecting, I think it's a big issue, for, you know, collecting overall, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that bad, and I think we have the vintage market to kind of prop us up. And again, sell the hype, buy the goats is now a good buying opportunity for those 2 guys. It definitely could be, depending on the pricing you can get into. I do think that both of these people will be remembered all time. They've had huge moments. They have a decent legacies to build upon, even if they do nothing from here on out. I think the question is, you need to be a little bit more hesitant and risk averse in the pricing that you're paying for these people, because a lot of the upside from them has now been diminished quite a bit, in my opinion. All right, let's talk about the event altogether. We had Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia, great fight. And we had, a pretty fun fight to start it off with. We had all finishes in this event. That is absolutely insane. Very rarely do we see that. The no prelims, I really enjoyed. I will say I really enjoyed. The broadcast was a little slow. They showed a ton of ads. They had a lot of fluff. I mean, I still stayed up till damn near 12 o'clock watching this. It was just way too late. But it was a really good fight. We also had Diego Lopez with an iconic stand on the cage and in the tops now. I don't know if it'll be open by the time I release this. Depends on how fast I can get this editing done. In the tops now, you have him with his arms stretched wide open with the White House in the background. Again, that would have been this type of stuff that really you could have juiced in a product like the UFC Freedom 250 product. But we have tops now, so maybe that's easier logistically for them to get to. But absolutely insane with Diego Lopez. Great start to the card. What happens with Diego? We have a guy that has been in the title chance a couple times with Bulk and couldn't get it done. He has an emphatic finish against a really good guy, Steve Garcia. Does he get another title shot? What's going to happen? He's a fan favorite. He puts on fun fights. Kind of interesting dilemma there storyline-wise, because while you want to push guys that are popular and while they're doing well, you also don't want to continue to throw a guy into title fights. If he loses title fights and then wins, loses title fights and then wins. So we will see. We got Bo Nickel versus Daukaus. This was one of the matchups where I was like, this is not a good matchup. Like if you're talking about competitiveness wise, right? Which is fine, because if you're having a card like this, you want to have finishes, you want to have exciting fights. You put on Bo Nickel versus Daukaus. And then you just go ahead and you let Bo Nickel win, right? Like nobody's surprised as to what happened in this. Bo Nickel did what he was supposed to do. How much do we give props to Bo Nickel for finishing Kyle Daukaus? Obviously, you have to win. You have to, put on a good show, which he did. But he did exactly what he was supposed to do. So I give him, I clap for him. But honestly, I'm not super like thrilled after seeing that. I don't think he changed any really from his last fight and what he did in his last fight with this fight. I don't think we learned much because of the strength of competition. This is about the same level that Bo Nickel has faced previously, and especially a huge step down from the RDR fight where he did get bested pretty decisively. We have Ruffy versus Chandler. Again, this was an absolute mismatch, and it was one of those where it's like, okay, well they're putting Michael Chandler on this card so he can get absolutely massacred and we can watch a KO in the octagon, which is what Ruffy did. Put on a really good performance. He had a good takedown defense against Chandler, which is going to be the knock on him after he got, I'm going to say exposed, because I do think it was that dominant against BSD. We know he's one of the most talented strikers in the division. He is one of the most rangy strikers in the division at 155. If he can still continue to make the 155-pound division, he will be a problem. And if he can get the right matchups, if he can stay away from Arman, if he can make adjustments and stay away from BSD and the guys that like to take the fights to the ground, he is as good or better than anybody in the division on the feet. And with that frame and with that speed and with that technicality and with the diverse weapons he is an absolute problem. I'm happy that he got the win. I'm happy that Mauricio Ruffy is, continuing to surge, because he's a really exciting guy and a really popular guy. And again, he has rookie cards in 2025. So that's definitely something that will help the modern market. Josh Hokit versus Derek Lewis. We talked about it a little bit. Hokit, again, we have another guy with, they announced this card, Derek Lewis is going to be on this. I'm like, okay, well, this is a complete mismatch. Derek Lewis has been, has not looked competitive against anyone that has been any type of decent in the last 3 or 4 years. He has wins. He has wins against people that aren't proven, that are kind of like meh. So I was like, okay, we've seen what Josh Hokit did against Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades is a much more competitive, much better fighter at this point in his career than Derek Lewis is. This went exactly how we all thought it would. Derek Lewis got paid. Shout out to Derek Lewis. He's done a lot in the sport. I don't want to, trash or tarnish his legacy or his name. But at this point in his career, he's going in there to get paid. And who might have blamed the guy for getting absolutely paid out and getting to have an experience at the White House card? Good for Derek Lewis. But again, how much props do we give for Josh Hokit? He did exactly what everyone thought he was going to do. I guess one thing positive that I would say is good from this is we saw that he has, the quickness and the physicality to take down a big guy like Derek Lewis and keep him down. I guess we saw some decent control, but Derek Lewis is not a technician, has never been that great on the ground. Usually he relies on athleticism and strength in order to get up quickly, and he's a little bit older, longer in the tooth. He got gassed very quickly. When Josh Hokit faces a guy that's very skilled in the upper echelon in the division and well-rounded, like a guy that we're going to talk about in a little bit, Ciryl Gane. I mean, these are the type of guys that he's up against now. Volkov, Ciryl Gane, potentially Poatan, who knows what he's going to do against a heavyweight. And who knows if heavyweight is going to potentially change him and his style forever. Like, putting on that much weight could be a lot slower, could be more gun shy. Like, who knows what's going to happen with him. But I could definitely see them running that Poatan Josh Hokit fight, and I think storyline wise it's probably the right move. I think hype wise it's probably the right move. You have a guy that's really surging. I think you need to give him another really good name. I don't necessarily want to see like a Waldo Cortez Acosta against Josh Hokit right now because of how much hype he has around him. I think you kind of have to give him Poatan. Poatan could be on the way out. This could be a way to cash in on his hype and on his name, or he wins. Let's say he knocks Hokit out, and then you're back up at the top with, Poatan being at the heavyweight division. Maybe he gets another crack at Ciryl Gane. That's a guy that I think does really well once he's been in there with somebody because he's such a seasoned vet. I think he could make some adjustments and potentially have a better game plan against Ciryl Gane. But, yeah, Josh Hokit, we also talk about, we had Josh Hokit put on a card on Donald Trump, which was a Spectre Immortal Moments card, which is an unlicensed product. I actually made a video about the Spectre Immortal Moments that's going to be releasing soon. And it's of Josh Hokit's first unlicensed autograph card and his first just cards in general that he has. I do think there is a spot in people's collections for these type of cards. He puts on a new release, a White House release of Spectre Immortal Moments, puts it around Donald Trump's neck. That got some pretty good buzz. People enjoyed seeing that. But then after the fight, we got Josh Hokit making a slamming Michelle Obama, which personally I think that's kind of weird, especially on the White House lawn. It's pretty disrespectful. Some fans really enjoy that type of stuff. To me, that's kind of out of line. You're talking about people that aren't involved in this at all. Kind of weird, disrespectful to do at the White House with a former first lady, and then to be, you know, to thank Jesus Christ and then do that. Personally, not a good look and not good for the sport or the UFC in my opinion.
Glug, glug, glug.
Suga Sean gets a KO. Looked pretty good, looked pretty sharp, looked pretty dialed in. Zahabi had nothing for him. Why wasn't this Suga Sean versus Sandhagen? Now, we did at least get an iconic walk-off KO, man. I was surprised when he did that because we've seen him do walk-off KOs before. And the KO, right, that he did previously, they didn't call it. So he had to come back and keep fighting. And I often wonder psychologically what that does to guys when they think they've finished a fight and then the ref doesn't call it and they have to continue going. I would imagine that's kind of a weird moment. So I was surprised to see him do that again. But the ref did call it this time. He emotes on him immediately with some salutes at the White House card. I am a little bit interested in the tops now. Did they add a variation with that moment? I didn't check into Suga Sean O'Malley's. You know, we saw the variation with the Diego Lopez. We have a variation, nice variation with Justin Gaethje. Do we get a nice variation of the salute with Suga Sean O'Malley? If we do, that's definitely something that I think people, you know, would love and would be into. But yeah, do we get Suga versus Jan? I think that's kind of what you have to do at this point, right? I mean, it would be easily sellable fight. The last fight they did was amazing. Now, granted, I do think Petr Yan won that fight, and this is the perfect time to run it back, right? Maybe they continue to, maybe they give another great performance and it's a barn burner and a banger and we see some highlights from both guys. I think timeline-wise, I would hope at least that Petr Yan is healed up and could make that. And hype-wise, I think it would do really well and would be good for that division. We have Ciryl Gane versus Poatan. We talked a lot about Poatan, so I'm not going to mention him at all in this part. We're just going to talk about Ciryl Gane and what this does. So we mentioned Ilia Topuria and Poatan, right? And how their pricing is surely going to dip at least a little bit, at most, maybe, you know, significantly. But we also have to think in modern collecting, we now have Ciryl Gane, who should surely get a huge bump. And I've been saying this for a long time, man. And I kind of wish I would have put my money where my mouth is with Ciryl Gane, because when you watched him fight, right, like, he's a very skilled guy. He's a very technical guy. But he's also one of the very few guys in this division that is actually a really good athlete. And what I mean by that is Ciryl Gane is a hooper. And for him to be doing windmill dunks at his size is absolutely incredible. Basketball translate, the footwork in basketball translates very good to fighting. He is, you know, one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete in the heavyweight division. And he is a guy that's naturally heavyweight size. He's not putting artificial size, you know, like we've seen with a lot of people in 205 that go up to the heavyweight division. His only loss is to John Jones and Francis Ngannou. He seems to be really healthy as far as like injury history goes, which could definitely benefit him. He still looks fast as ever. He still looks like he's in his prime. We know in the heavyweight division, guys can fight to 36, 37, 38 and not really have many issues. So he definitely could be in his prime right now. I believe he's 34 and still have 3 or 4 years of, you know, solid gas in the tank to continue to go on a run. What happens to his card pricing? Shout out to Lewis MMA Cardboard. He has one of the best Ciryl Gane rated rookie superfractors that are out there. It's a gold superfractor gold vinyl rookie card. Absolutely sick. He bought this, I believe it was, he's really good at timing the market. I believe it was after the eye poke. And when he bought that and sent it to me, I was like, I love this. Great buy, man. You're buying low. One of his best cards visually. Looks really good. And now he's sitting on, you know, he had to have doubled his money in one night, right? So I think that was really cool that he went out and made a move on a 101 that was undervalued. And again, how many times have I said this? If y'all watch the channel a lot of money is to be made on these higher end cards. Like, for whatever reason, that is where there's a ton of cushion because there's not as much high end buyers in this space yet. So yeah, we got Ciryl Gane absolutely surging. And we also have Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. Again, I'm not going to talk about Ilia because we hit that so hard earlier. Let's talk about Justin Gaethje, who has to get a huge bump from this. He finally, in my opinion, he's had a very similar career to Dustin Poirier in that he's kind of been there at the big moments. He's been very close to the big moments. He's had interim titles, you know, been right around the top. Hasn't been the best though. Like, you've never been definitively until now been able to say Justin Gaethje is the best at this time. You can now say that about Justin Gaethje, which I feel like everybody, even if you're a Topuria fan, you probably like Justin Gaethje too. He's been around forever. He is the highlight for a reason, and really cool to see him finally get, you know, an undisputed championship and do it in spectacular fashion at probably the biggest event maybe we will ever see for some time at this UFC White House card. Very cool to see Justin Gaethje do that, and his market has to absolutely explode. I saw a guy asking, I think it was 20K bounty on his 1-of-1 rookie card. Like, there's no way to Justin Gaethje's getting that kind of money unless he wins this fight. So while we have, you know, some of the biggest drivers of this taking some dips, we also have some massive wins and some people getting boosted up as well. We got some upcoming videos soon. I mentioned it earlier. We got the Spectre art video. We had that insane auction that just broke many records. We got some cards selling for huge numbers. I can't wait to cover that here soon whenever I have some time. That'll be on the market. I also have some videos that are already filmed. If you are a B.A.T crew and a member, you will already get access to those. There's some really fun videos about Midnight. There's some fun videos about cards that I've already bought. There's some fun videos with me and Damien just talking about the UFC card market in general. Thanks for watching.